Welcome, everybody. This is an exciting event with more than 500 of you registered. We are delighted to be bringing you tonight Isabelle Hau, who will be speaking to you from Stanford about artificial intelligence and the future of learning, 5 things parents and educators should know about AI. My name is Charlene Margot, and I'm co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture that brings you this program, the Parent Education Series, now in its 19th year. Please join me, everyone, in a really warm welcome for Isabelle Hau. Take it away, Isabelle.
Thank you, Charlene, for this wonderful introduction, and thank you to the Parent Venture team. Thank you to also all the parents and educators who are joining. It's mid-December, and I know how busy mid-December can be for all of us parents and educators. So thank you for being with us this evening. Really, really grateful. So let me share I have prepared a few slides for all of us. Let me share this document with us, with all of you. And please interrupt if there's any problem on seeing the slide.
That's
or
perfect,
on.
Isabelle.
Yeah, good, perfect. Oops, let me just So yeah, as Charlene explained, the Stanford Accelerator for Learning is focused on actually advancing learning, as the name suggests, and advancing learning for all. So we are housed at the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University, and we work across disciplines. In concrete terms, sorry about that, what it means is that I have the privilege of working with many faculty and many students across all our 7 schools at Stanford University to advance this big mission of learning for all. So we are named the Stanford Accelerator for Learning and not the Stanford Accelerator for Education for 2 reasons. One, we believe that learning is lifelong. It starts at birth and lasts through the lifespan. And learning is also life-wide. So of course it happens in schools, but it also happens a lot outside of schools, whether at home, whether in a library, in a museum, in a park. So our vision is for everyone. It's a world where learning is effective, active, and joyful for all learners. And we believe that we are at an inflection point to do this, with 4 game changers that are emerging, that we are seeing more and more emerge in our learning environments. The first is just new data. So schools traditionally have been very, very poor on the use of data, especially compared to health or other sectors like the military or other sectors. And for the first time, we are at an inflection point about the use of data in education, which I think is promising. 2, and this is really the big topic of this evening, we are seeing some new technologies emerge, including artificial intelligence, of course, but also other technologies that will impact the future of learning. We are very excited at Stanford University to work with many faculty and scholars who are advancing new sciences, especially in neuroscience. It's an area where 90% of the modern body of neuroscience has been invented in the past 20 years. So a lot of progress is being made right now on our understanding of the brain and our understanding of how humans learn. And then last but not least, we are also seeing new needs emerge in our schools. And this little chart here in the blue that has little pie charts is actually directly taken from one of our partner school districts in Santa Clara Unified. And if you look at some of the themes around that chart, you see equity ambassador, inclusive empathizer. One that I like is global citizen, future-ready learner. You don't see the traditional academic outcomes that we have been accustomed to in education, such as math or other reading outcomes. Anyway, just really interesting how those new needs are manifesting across our schools as well. So that combination of those four are leading to new opportunities. And the way we address it at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning is across those 6 initiatives, where in each one of them, we believe that Stanford University can make a huge impact at the intersection of research and innovation. And for us at Stanford, I love this picture of this Oscar-winning movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, that some of you may have seen and enjoyed. I feel like this is what is happening right now with AI on Stanford campus. It's literally everything, everywhere, all at once. And especially in my field of education, AI is impacting at least 3 different aspects of education. One is how we learn. Second is how we teach and how we assess learning. And then last but not least is, and we'll discuss a little bit more about this in a few minutes, is what we teach is also evolving given the changes in work that are underway due to automation with artificial intelligence. So we have a lot of things changing all at once. And with that comes some big risks and some big opportunities. And we'll discuss about some of those tonight. And I would love to hear some of your thoughts as well. With that, I would love to hear from all of you about where you are on this potential of AI in education. And if you wanted to fill this poll that's appearing on our screens, one is you're very excited and you see really tremendous potential. Our kids should learn AI, should use AI. That's really category number 1, a lot of excitement. 2, you're somewhat excited, but you have reservations and you think we should be, cautious in terms of how we implement those technologies in our schools and in our learning environments, which candidly is where I am at. And then 3 would be you're not excited at all, or you're deeply concerned and you think we should really be extremely careful about how we proceed with this technology. So I will give everyone a few minutes. I see that some of you have already filled the polls. 86 people have already filled the poll on my screen and growing. And really interesting to see how it's shaping out. It's actually really, seems like a lot of people are in where I am, somewhat excited with reservations. We're just going to give a few more minutes for people to be able to fill this poll.
Isabelle, do you see the percentages?
Yes, I see them. So I see
Okay.
right now on my screen, I see 30%, which is a large number, of very excited. So we have, we're in Silicon Valley. We have a large group of people who are very excited and see great potential with this technology. That's excellent. And actually, it's growing a little bit on my screen. I would say the largest portion, a majority here on this call, is somewhat excited, but has reservations, which I love. I think it's really good to have also skepticism and voice those concerns. It's the right time to do this, and it's really important. So thank you for that group. And also, maybe even more importantly, I love that we have 11% that are not excited at all and deeply concerned. So that group is equally important in my mind. And you're a minority, but we need to hear your voice. That voice is critical. So thank you for that.
Okay. Okay, to end poll, Isabelle?
Yes. So today I wanted to cover 5 different themes about AI. One is I wanted to level set with a group on where we are in terms of adoption. 2 is explaining a little bit about what is AI as a technology. 3 is discussing about the use cases of AI, and especially with a focus on the effective use cases of artificial intelligence. Then 4, the risks. 5, an issue that is dear to mine and I know to a lot of you probably on this call, which is equity. How can we ensure that everyone has access to this technology in an equitable manner? And last but not least, I have a little bonus, which is my area of expertise around relationships, and we'll discuss that more in a few minutes. So the time to reach 50 million people with different technologies has accelerated. So let me give you a few examples here. To reach 50 million people with airlines, it took 68 years. With a telephone, it took 50 years. With electricity, 46 years. With computer, 14 years. Cell phone, 12 years, quite a long time. Internet, 7 years. Twitter, or now X, 2 years. And ChatGPT, 5 weeks. So clearly, we are living, all of us, an accelerated pace of adoption, unprecedented pace of adoption of this new technology. And we are seeing this in our schools. We are seeing this with our students and with our children, and we are seeing this also with our parents. So here is the results of a poll that the Walton Foundation has now done 3 times since the introduction of ChatGPT about 2 years ago, where they asked a number of questions to initially teachers and K-12 students only, and then they added undergrads and parents more recently. And you can see what is really interesting about this survey is that you can see trends on how the adoption is evolving. So what we are learning from that work is that we now have almost 80% of teachers that say that they are either very familiar or somewhat familiar with the technology. So very, very high level of acknowledgement about this technology. Similarly, for K-12 learners in the middle, you see 75% of K-12 learners in May 2024 are saying that they are familiar. And then parents as well, which is a new latest data, are also increasingly aware and familiar about this technology. So the level of awareness is definitely there. And then in terms of actual adoption, this is a little bit of an eye chart, but let me walk you through it. What we are seeing is on the right-hand side, the professional use of this technology by different categories of people, whether they are teachers, K-12 students, undergrads or college students, and parents. And if you focus for a moment on the green bars, you can see that it's almost 50% across the board that say that they are active users of this technology at this point, with a very high increase, especially in K-12 students' usage. This is a little yellow at the bottom, plus 27 points between the 2 periods that were observed. So a meaningful increase in usage by our students, but also across the board, including parents, we are all using this technology. More than half of us are in some way in our professional activities. This is a different study that was done by one of my dear colleague, Professor Victor Lee, whom I work very closely at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, who looked at the usage across age groups. So the younger age groups, lower elementary, pre-K2 on the left, up to high school on the right. And you will not be surprised about these results. Of course, the higher grades are seeing increase a level of use and knowledge about artificial intelligence relative to the younger age groups, but very interesting nevertheless about the usage across the board. That's very consistent with the Walton's survey. And then that's simply asking from the same school district how people are using and what are their top needs regarding, this is for educators only, not for parents. What are their professional needs regarding what they want to learn about artificial intelligence? And you can see it varies a little bit again by age group, but you can see that the largest bar here is a blue one. Educators want at this point not so much how to teach about AI literacy, what we call AI literacy in our lingo at Stanford and other partners. And they also feel like they have enough on basic introduction about AI, which is a red color here on those graphs. What they really want to know is how to use it. So let me turn to the second point after this, this discussion about the adoption curve and the very fast adoption, which is essentially where we are, is that it is there. It is here. AI is here in our schools, with our teachers, with our students, with our children, and with our parents. But what is it? So, of course, I could give a very technical explanation, but let me give a very, very simple and technical one. AI is a combination of three things. One is data, two is compute, and three is algorithm. And let me explain a little bit more. So data, so AI relies on big data sets, and which is why those models are often referred to as large language models, because they use a lot of large and big data sets for their analysis. Compute is a power that is being used to analyze and process those big data. And then third, algorithm is a way we organize those data based on statistical patterns. So historically, the big bottleneck on AI was data. We didn't have those big data sets. We didn't have the internet for a long time. And so all of this has come through over the past few decades. Right now, and then more recently, there have been huge breakthroughs in algorithms, especially for generative AI, what people refer to as neural networks, that have allowed the emergence of generative artificial intelligence. But really where we are right now, across those three buckets of data, compute, and algorithm, and where people are really focused on is compute. So for a university like Stanford, this is where we are asking the federal government for more support, because we are having a very hard time being at the same level as a Google or Microsoft or an OpenAI or these big, large tech companies that are investing huge amounts of money in compute, in this capacity, the power to analyze the data. I would add for all of us that for us in education, what I'm the most concerned about is actually not compute, although I think more compute would help, is the quality of the data and the algorithms to make sure that they are pedagogically savvy and that learning can materialize in effective ways for our learners. Because those large language models, for the most part, were not built for education. So ensuring that both the data sets and the algorithms are tailored for education practices is critical at this point. I will go through this very quickly, because, but just to speak a little bit about the history, this is a long-standing history of AI. AI is not new. We think a lot about the emergence of ChatGPT, and I have focused on this in the prior slides. But AI has actually been in existence in the 1950s. The term itself, artificial intelligence, was coined by a computer science professor at Stanford in 1956. And then it has gone through some ebbs and flows, some due to data, some due to compute, some due to other reasons, funding related. Anyway, but a lot of progress has been done over the past 10, 15 years, especially with some of those progress on large data sets and algorithms. I will go through this quickly, and I'm happy to take either questions or discuss with anyone who is interested in going more in depth about the technology itself. But what is generative AI in particular, which is this new wave of artificial intelligence that many are discussing and thinking about? So this is, again, like a big data set. So let me put a picture on this of images, for example, of puppies that has already been pre-trained. So we know that they are classified as puppies. Okay, so that's a first element of generative AI. Then computer scientists and hopefully educators for education applications are doing what is called fine-tuning. What they are doing is that they are analyzing those pre-trained puppy pictures and then saying, explaining which ones fit into what category of puppies. And then for us, we will do a prompt tuning, which is helping with organizing those data based on a number of questions. I'm happy to go into more depth for anyone who is interested in the technology, but I will move on. And my next topic is for those who are interested in the future. I was going to speak very briefly about what we are working on at Stanford that may be of interest to some of you, which is where it is going. So we looked at where it went in the past and now where it's going. So clearly, it's evolving toward multimodal. The first use of generative AI were mostly text-based. So for anyone who has used some of those interfaces like ChatGPT, you may relate that they were mostly text-based with prompts that were text-based and responses that were given in text format. And now it's evolving toward more and more video input. So OpenAI launched Sora, for example, 2 days ago, which is a video generation model that's a lot of fun to use, which similarly is based on a set of prompts and generates videos. The next thing that is underway at Stanford University and beyond is what we call agentic structures. It's a very fancy name to say essentially that we are evolving toward a future where AI has different roles. So in education, it could be AI could play the role of a coach. It could play the role of an explainer. It could play the role of a dictionary. It's essentially different roles for different AI agents. And then it is also really clear that we are evolving toward this phase of what our head of Stanford Human Artificial Intelligence Center, Fei Li, calls embodied AI. Again, another fancy name that essentially says that we are giving a form, a robotic form to the technology. And here you see a project that I've been working on at Stanford, and I took a picture of it a few days ago of a dog. It's meant to be, it doesn't look to me too much like a dog, but it's meant to be what we call our Stanford autonomous dog, which can evolve autonomously and has some interesting features. Anyway, there is a number of researchers in computer science that are working on the application of artificial intelligence and the intersection with robotics. And then a lot of people are very concerned about this next phase of AGI, which, who knows when and where it will take place and what the implications are. It's widely debated. Let me come back for a moment on uses. So this is my third point on use cases for education. So let me come back now after the technology piece to our education world. So there are many use cases of AI in education and more emerging. There are some about classroom activities. Teachers are using it for lesson planning. Personalized learning is one of the key critical words that many people use when thinking about artificial intelligence. A lot of use cases also on administrative management. For example, for bus schedules is one of big application in Palo Alto, in some districts, not only Palo Alto, but in some districts. Anyway, a lot of really interesting applications. Where I personally get even more excited is where I see application of this technology that connect us better as humans. And I put a few examples here with a little pictures of projects that we are working on at Stanford that get me really excited. So the one in the middle is, and I hope you can see it, it's a little small. It's called our Google Glass project, and it's a project across the School of Medicine and the Graduate School of Education. And you see this young child wearing this device, these glasses. This child is on the autism is on the autism disorder spectrum disorder, and he's looking at his mom. You can see the hair of his mom. This child was not able to understand emotions until he was able to wear those glasses. Those glasses are using a computer vision technology which tells the child what the emotions are of the person across from him or her. It is an incredible experience, of course, to have, and I have seen some families using those glasses. Incredible experience, super moving, obviously, to have, for one of the first time, a child recognize the emotions of their parent or their mom in that particular picture. The other one is the one with a little baby girl and the mom here. This is a project what we call the FIND program in our Early Childhood Education Center at Stanford. The program is one that has been ongoing for a long time. It takes videos of a parent-child interaction. So think about any sport that you may be practicing. So let's say baseball. If you want to become really good at baseball, at some point you will get like a video coaching, video taping of your skills as an athlete. Here it's the same idea. It's a videotaping of a parent athlete on your parenting skills. The problem historically has been that you need a lot of humans to analyze those video footage of a child-parent interaction and provide that feedback to the parent. With AI, and here it's not generative AI, it's actually machine learning technology, we are now able to process those video footage and video interactions much faster. And we still have humans in the loop to ensure that those are the right conclusions, but there is an incredible time and money saving as a result of this. and also huge impact benefits because the more real-time the feedback is, the better it is obviously for the parent or the adult caregiver to receive that feedback. So anyway, those are two examples that I love simply because they are enhancing our possibilities and our human connections. But I would love to hear from you how you are seeing either yourself as an adult, whether you are a parent or an educator, or if you're a parent, your child, or if you're an educator, your children, children or students in your class. How are they using AI? So maybe we'll look together at the chat, and I would love to read with you and from you some of your comments. I see a really interesting comment about math use with CanMigo. Yeah. This is actually one, thank you for this comment, Keith Wank. This is actually one of the limitations that we are hoping will get addressed over time. One of the limitations right now of a lot of those chatbots, whether CanMigo or others, is that often they use one type of pedagogical move. So in the case of CanMigo, it's essentially Socratic method. For most and most educators on the call would relate to what I'm going to say. If you're a good educator, you realize that maybe Socratic method is an excellent one for a while, but then if you see a student who is stuck, you may change your tactic. And right now, the pedagogical moves are limited on a lot of the chatbots. So I'm hoping this is one area where we make a lot of progress over time. I see another great comment about checking data. We'll come back to that. So Lisa is commenting on using text to using AI to simplify text. Yeah, that's one of the most common use case. I would, by the way, recommend to encourage people to not only summarize or simplify, but also expand possibilities with synthesizing data, which is another interesting use case. Let me just see here. Really interesting. Thank you for all these great comments and input, and a lot of different ones, across different subjects for writing. Yeah, a doctor here, family doctor piloting AI for his patients. Interesting, for taking notes. Yeah, concern about students using AI to write their paper. Actually, that's a great segue. Thank you for that. Let me comment on this next. Thank you for all the great input. Let me actually move us to risks. So, and risks is actually my largest section of comments. I have a lot of risks because there are lots of concerns at this point. Lots of possibilities, but also a lot of concerns. And before even getting to AI, let me bring us to Greek antiquity with Socrates, who is, one of our greatest philosophers of all time and one of our greatest educators of all time too. Interestingly, he was concerned about a new invention, and this new invention, he was concerned that it would produce, and I read it literally here, forgetfulness in the minds of those who learn to use it, because they will not practice their memory. This invention that he was referring to was obviously not AI in the Greek antiquity, it was writing. And I find it so interesting that one of our greatest educators was concerned about writing at the time. He was concerned that the process of writing would make the students less critical thinkers and less able to memorize things. I find it fascinating as a little snippet of history about what someone like Socrates was concerned about at the time. So yes, of course, there are lots of concerns about AI, but so that we all anchor in history, some other people have been concerned about different inventions and different things. I think all of us would agree that writing is probably not our greatest concern these days. Anyway, if anything, this is probably one of our most beautiful inventions of all time. So just really interesting to reflect on this from a historical perspective. So someone had asked about the concern about cheating. And I think this is a really important one. I'm not going to dismiss it at all. I think this is a real concern that's impacting how we assess and pedagogy itself in our schools, and that will result in a lot of changes over the next few years. But here's what we did. So again, this is the same colleague that I referred to, our head of artificial intelligence at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, Victor Lee, in partnership with another faculty named Dennis Pope, who were very lucky actually in many ways. They had access to some data from some school districts that they had garnered before ChatGPT was launched about cheating behaviors. And then they were able to get access to a comparable data set with same grade levels post-launch of ChatGPT, and they just actually did it 2 years later. So that analysis was done 2 years ago, and then they just updated their data, and the outcomes are exactly the same. What it says is that cheating behaviors actually have not materially increased with the use of this technology. And this is a published paper by Stanford University here, if you wanted to look at the more granular methodology and data. What is very concerning for is that those cheating behaviors patterns are actually quite high across the board. They are at 60 to 70% of students who report having engaged in at least one of the cheating behaviors that had been identified in that survey. So I find it really interesting. While behaviors of our students and children are evolving, a lot of them want to do the right things. It's not so much that they are cheating more with those tools. They are just trying to understand what is cheating in this new age of AI? How do we define it? School leaders, teachers are also trying to figure this out. It's a very complicated question, which again, some of my colleagues have a big focus on because we need to have a lot better understanding and better frameworks. Another big risk is the dominance of big technology. So I sit at Stanford University, and we are partnering with all these big tech companies. So I'm not not saying that they are not good people. But yet there is a concern for all of us here on education applications. So they all launched these big language models with multiple applications. Most of them were not education related initially. Interestingly, more and more, they are each one after the other, and there may be a competitive aspect here. They are starting to launch products that have some applications in education. The one in the middle is from OpenAI. Copilot is increasingly being used as an AI assistant for education. Learn LM is an example from Google with Gemini. So anyway, this is interesting, and also raises a lot of questions about and what I call the three imperatives in my mind. Number one, we need to have educators in the loop on all these applications for education. We need to ensure that they are pedagogically savvy. A lot of work to be done there. Two, I believe that while it's fine to have big tech involved, we also need a lot stronger independent actors, whether it's academia, of course, this is where I sit, but also policy, philanthropy, maybe media. All these independent actors need to have, clear voices in what's happening right now. And last but not least, given where I sit, I need to also speak about research, of course, and we need to understand, what works for whom, in what context at any point of time. The next risk, and you may be familiar with this one, had myself an interesting example recently. I was looking at, I was trying to create a picture of a group of researchers using generative, an AI, a generative AI platform. And what I got back was, as you may expect, was a lot of males, a lot of older males, mostly white. And then I prompted again because I wanted to make sure they were a little bit more diversity, both gender and age and ethnicity and race. And I had to prompt the system at least 5 times to get a more, a better, more representative picture of what a group of researchers could look like. So I was not so much concerned about the first picture that I got, but more the difficulty of the system to adapt. And even my better prompts were not yielding a better answer. Anyway, here I put four actually, amazing universities that have looked at biases in many different ways, and they are all concluding that there are biases at the moment. The two on the left are from Stanford, one about, the title is pretty explicit, Covert Racism in AI, How Language Models Are Reinforcing Outdated Stereotypes. Another one was done a little bit earlier about bias against non-native English writers, which is a huge area of concern. The one in the middle is from MIT, that also shows some gender and emotion concerns on bias. And then the one on the right is from Dartmouth University, and also showing some meaningful biases. Anyway, all researchers across universities are highlighting some meaningful concerns. I think we are potentially, we have the potential, by elevating some of those concerns, I think we have an opportunity to get better on those biases. And I would also note that, biases exist regardless of AI. But to put it maybe more positively, how can this technology help us to have less biases than exist today in our existing systems? The next one is about learning, and that's probably, if I wanted you to remember one thing from today, is this. We still have a lot to learn about whether this technology helps on learning outcomes or not. The reason being that if you think about timeline, the technology was introduced 2 years ago, and in average to have a peer-reviewed research is more 2 to 3 years. So we are just at the beginning of seeing a real research at scale about whether this technology works or not. So hopeful that we will learn more over the next few years, but right now I would say this, if anyone tells you we know if this works or we know this doesn't work, no, nobody really knows. So I highlighted here a few studies. The first three ones seem to suggest that there is a positive learning outcome, so gains. The first one was a Harvard study on AI tutors that seemed to show that there was an increase in outcomes and in engagement and motivation to learn. So very, very promising. But it was done on Harvard students, so obviously hard to generalize on a larger population. The second study was done by my colleague Susanna Loeb at Stanford. She looked at the use of AI to support tutors in math. So not children or not students, but tutors, by leveraging best practices of some of the top tutors out there, and then supporting some that are newer tutors to learn from some of the better techniques and craft from the more experienced tutors. And what she showed is meaningful gains in math skills for students, and those tutors who were the least experienced benefited the most out of that study. So very encouraging as a way to support adults in enhancing learning outcomes of their students or children. So very promising. And similarly, there was a study in a very different context in Ghana, outside of the US, that also showed an AI tutor with significant positive learning gains in math. So those are the positive ones, and again, very early stage studies. The one I highlighted also one that showed some meaningful different outcomes. This was a study in Turkey that showed exactly the opposite. It showed that the technology brings essentially over-reliance. What it means is that when the students seem to be learning and seem to be getting better test scores, but when the AI was then being removed, they seem to be learning less. So that's what is being referred to as over-reliance on the technology. They were not really learning. Once you are removing the technology, they are worse off. So anyway, really interesting outcomes. I think a lot more to learn on the benefits or risk or learning over-reliance of this technology. And again, the need for more research to continue on this very important topic, given the fast adoption curve. You all know this. This will not, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but there are major privacy and safety concerns with this technology. Most of those systems are public. So if you enter any information in ChatGPT, you should expect, unless you have changed your privacy settings in a very proactive manner, you should expect that the data are made public and will be used for future data analysis by other people. So privacy and safety are, increasing major concerns with this technology, given that we feel like it's secure. Certainly when I use it, I feel like I'm in front of my computer in my office or in my living room. And I feel like I'm safe in front of this chatbot. But in fact, I'm exposing potentially data that can be made public. So just highlighting the risk for privacy and safety. I will go back to environment in a moment. The next risk that I wanted to highlight is this one, because it's connected to the prior one, is mental health. So mental health is a very interesting one. There are now, at this point, multiple lawsuits about what is being referred to as AI companions, those chatbots that are that a lot, millions of teens and young adults are using. So there is a lawsuit by a parent that is concerned that the chatbot, this AI companion, may have driven their child to commit suicide. And then there is another one more recent, as of a few days ago, about a child, apparently an autistic child, who may have been recommended to even kill their parents. Anyway, lots of concerns that are emerging with those chatbots clearly, and their recommendations from a mental health perspective. We had done a study at Stanford a few months ago, and we are updating it for its impact on learning. So I'm excited to look at to see the results of this, which is on the left-hand side of this page here. The study was done with one of those AI companions called Replika.ai, REPLIKA.ai. And the researchers looked at the impact of multiple things, actually, and they are so for those who are not familiar with those AI companions, you go on those platforms and you create an AI avatar, and then you can start conversing with that AI avatar. So here's what the researchers found, and a few very, very interesting findings in my mind. One is people using Replika.ai were more lonely than average. So anyway, there are multiple interpretations of this, but that's one of the facts that they found. Two, 90%, so very high percentage of users are very confused very quickly, and saying that they feel like the avatars or these machine representations that they are getting are human-like or have human characteristics. 90%, 90. So essentially, a vast majority of those users feel like they are speaking to a human. 3, which is maybe a little bit more positive, this seems to be because people, maybe because of number one, because maybe people who are more lonely are using those platforms. Based on this study, which obviously differs from some of these headlines on the right, the researchers seem to have found a slight decrease in suicidal ideation for those users of that particular chatbot, which could have been promising, but contradicts obviously some of those latest lawsuits that are emerging against some other platforms similarly. All of this to say for all of us, a key takeaway here is that we are still at a place where these relationship with the machines are very confusing, and they are very confusing, especially for our youngest and for our children. So I would say, just as parents, as educators, we need to be really, really cautious and mindful of those interactions with some of those what is called AI companions. And happy to chat more about this at the end. I was going to come back on environment, which is another big risk. You may have seen this study that was in this headline in the Washington Post, but essentially each one that we are doing a search on any one of those platforms using AI, we are essentially using the equivalent of a bottle of water. So there is a lot of energy. This is going back to the compute piece that I raised earlier. Compute means a lot of energy use, and so a lot of bad environment effects from the use of AI. I'm hopeful that we'll get better at this over time with more efficiency, but right now it's a huge concern. So I thought I would highlight it. It's outside of education, but it's also related to our broader society. For all of you as parents, and certainly for me, another big risk is, will there still be jobs for our children when they graduate based on AI? So here's what the research says, and the research is not conclusive really on this debate about automation or augmentation. So if you listen to OpenAI on the left-hand side, it seems like AI is already having a meaningful impact on 80% of workers have had 10% or more of their tasks being impacted by the use of artificial intelligence. So there seem to be an effect on our jobs for sure. However, if you look at this analysis of prior technologies, each one of them actually has led to more jobs being created and an augmentation of us as humans. So the debate on automation versus augmentation, I would say, is still very much open. What is clear is that the gap, as we discussed maybe all along, the gap between what and how we teach, in my mind, is maybe the greatest concern here is widening. And we really need to ensure that our education systems adapt to those changes as quickly as possible. It changes about what we teach and learn and how we teach and learn. So on the what, I would love to see education and schools move to, there are lots of different frameworks, but I'm calling it the double C, double D, double E for simplicity's sake here, of ensuring that our kids have critical thinking and problem solving, that they have creative mind, curious, they are innovators, that they learn about those tools. So digital and AI literacy is critical, that we also know how to process those big data that we have been discussing, and our schools are the best place for them to learn that. And last but not least is that they are focused on emotional and relational intelligence, and we learn from schools and from educators about the ethical and societal implications of technology. And then on the how, same thing and same themes, I would love to see our education systems move a lot more toward experiential learning and collaborative learning, interdisciplinary learning. This is our future. This is very clear to me that we need a lot more adaptation toward these new what and new hows that a lot of our schools have been starting to think about, and that AI is accelerating. And then I thought I would just discuss for a moment, you may have this question as well about what is Stanford doing on this. And so I thought I would just highlight a few things that our university is doing for our own students to make sure that they are AI future ready. And I would not say by any stretch that this is a perfect response, but I just thought I would highlight a few things. So one, we have increased meaningfully AI instruction and AI literacy. So for example, AI classes have doubled over the past few years. We have many seminars on AI, groups of students that are thinking about the use of AI for themselves, faculty thinking about it too. Then we have many projects where we are seeking to involve our students through course for application, for example, that we are calling seed grants for our students to ensure that they think about projects. And here you have pictures of our amazing students and some of their projects that they're highlighting to a group of people on the generative AI for the future of learning. Workshops on those topics are happening very frequently. This is one here on the intersection of AI and VR. And last but not least, and that actually doesn't necessarily cost a lot of funds, or it's not difficult to put together. And I would love to see community colleges and school districts implement a lot of those, a lot more on the right. It's experimentation with AI. And this experimentation, I just put two examples of this. One, we have named a little space at our Graduate School of Education, which is not fancy at all. It's a little alley really in our school. We are calling it the AI Tinkery, where this physical space can be used for by our students to come and tinker with AI tools and create things that they are interested in creating. And then the image on the top is a hackathon where we invite our students to come and hack for the future that they want to see. So my last area of discussion is on equity. And equity is actually one of those areas where it's also not a not obvious yet there are some promise and a lot of risks on equity with this technology. Let me start with maybe the hope. The hope right now is that at least some of the early research, and here I highlighted at the bottom a number of areas around writing, math, creativity, college persistence, and multiple types of jobs. It seems like the technology, for those who are using it, is helping those who need it the most. So there is essentially an equalizer effect, a leveling effect from this technology that seems to be happening across all these different areas from all these different research. That's very, very encouraging, because that could mean that this technology is helping, with this equalizer effect across many areas. Again, very, very interesting, and I thought I would highlight the positive first. However, here is the big caveat to that, is that it's only happening when it's in use. And not everyone has use of this technology. So not everyone has access to AI. It's still expensive for some of the best technologies, or the latest and greatest. You need also to have continuous access, so meaning you need to have broadband, which not everyone does have access to. You also need to be educated on how to use it effectively. So there are lots of inequities there, depending on how much professional learning and other tools you can have access to in your organization or in your school district. There are also a lot of other concerns. One that I would highlight is this human machines one. It's actually a concern that I have over time where, you know, we probably don't want a future where we have human tutors for the most privileged children and then machine tutors for those who have less means. Anyway, that's one of the areas that I highlighted as well for a potentially greater digital divide, not only in the US, but also globally. So lots of concerns, some promise, but also a lot of concern, of course. And then I will conclude with this bonus point, which I feel really strongly about, as Charlene and Beth and others know, which is what I call relational intelligence. I believe that beyond artificial intelligence, here is what we need. We need relational intelligence. My friends, my very, very dear friend at LinkedIn is calling it the future of the economy will be a relational economy, one where people connect with each other. And to achieve this relational economy, we need to start in education. And in education, we need to think, in my mind, about a lot more about human connections and relational intelligence. And artificial intelligence can help connect us, as we saw earlier. But we need to make sure that it's not isolating us further and isolating our kids further than technology may have in the past. And then I added my, little self-promotion here with my new book that speaks a lot about this topic of relational intelligence and what I call love, which is the not scientific way to explain relational intelligence. This is what I believe we need. We need love to learn. Thank you.
Well, thank
And I
you.
will turn to
Oh,
Charlene. Yeah, I know that you had, I see you back with me. That's nice to see you.
hi, Isabel. Thank you for that amazing talk. We've gone a little bit past our hour. So if you're willing, can we just take a couple minutes for a few questions?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sorry, I was not watching the time properly. I thought we still had time.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's go because everybody, we still have a bunch on with us and there's some really good questions. So let's take a few. All right. Everybody loved this. This was such a wonderful insight into artificial intelligence and learning. Thank you, Isabel. You can tell by all the, I love, this is technology at its best, right? All the emojis. Okay, we'll start easy. How is the use of AI being tracked by teachers? Some students who've been accused of using AI insist that they did not. Can we trust AI detectors?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. I love that one. So the short answer is no. We can't trust AI detectors. Um, As a matter of fact, OpenAI had a detector and they took it out. And some of there are some detector companies that are doing their best, but they are not reliable. We can't reliably say whether someone is cheating or not. At this point, this is not the recommended path. There are other avenues that we need to explore on these cheating behaviors or other patterns. Detection is not one that I would invest a lot of money on and would not recommend our schools to invest a lot of money on.
So for example, I have heard college advisors insist that they can tell the difference between an AI generated essay and a student generated essay. I'm not sure that's true. What do you think?
I would love to see this. I don't, I was just asked recently. We had a little bingo with our friends in computer science. That was this was not words. This was not an essay, but these were pictures, and we were asked to identify whether a cat was a real cat or an AI generated cat. And I will tell you the truth, I was not able to say or make any difference whatsoever. So I'm not saying that this particular person is not able to, I'm not able to. And I think most of us are not able to distinguish at this point between human and machine generated. They are there are a few things that those systems tend to do in words and things and patterns that you can say, oh, it's probably AI generated or some obvious, but with a little bit of tweaking, it's very easy to make them look really like humans. You can introduce a few mistakes or change a few patterns, and then it's becomes very, very difficult to identify very quickly.
Well, thank you for that. We should all be cautious. Okay, here's a great question. In your experience, do you think the public education system is ready for AI?
So what I work with a lot of school districts, certainly local school districts around Palo Alto and Bay Area, but also a lot of districts nationwide. And I'm very impressed by what a lot of districts are doing nationwide. Um, they are embracing this innovation in beautiful ways, but with also, the appropriate caution and frameworks. Most states and school districts at this point, I lost count, but I think it's 40 or 42 states now have some frameworks on AI and education. Apologies, I'm losing track of the exact count, but Teach AI tracks them very carefully. If you wanted to make sure that I have the right number, Teach AI would be a great resource. So anyway, more and more states are adopting some good frameworks for districts and schools to navigate and maneuver around this new technology. Because of the fast adoption, it's really needed.
All right, thank you for that, Isabel. So one last question. This is a good one. Do you foresee students in classrooms receiving differentiated learning from an AI tutor? For example, I watched 60 Minutes Sunday night and Anderson Cooper was with students using Conmigo. So what do you say?
Yeah, well, I think this has been already without AI. We've seen a lot more adoption of relationship-based tutoring during and after the pandemic, because the effect of the pandemic has been so complicated on many students. With a drop in learning outcomes across the board. So these interventions of tutoring we have known for a very long time they are extremely effective, especially when they happen one-on-one or in small group settings. Also, when they happen in schools, in the confine of a school setting, because as soon as you have a tutoring outside, some children then are not able to go to that tutoring center or are not able to access that technology. So you're creating some inequities as a result. But when it happens in small groups within schools, what we call at Stanford high impact tutoring, this is very effective. This is one of the most effective forms of interventions in education. So, and that can happen without technology, with human tutor, but it can also be enhanced with technology, either for supporting the tutors themselves as adults in their craft, as we were discussing a little bit earlier, or as supporting students directly, potentially in their learning.
So that's really the positive side of it, isn't it? Can
Yes.
be.
Yes, but I would also say, because this is such an important topic, I'm certainly in the camp of uh, ensuring that there is a human. So we also know that the most effective tutoring and mentorship programs have this long-term relationship that is so critical for all of us humans to thrive and learn. So I would also not recommend synthetic tutors that are entirely replacing educators and all the beauty of our teachers and human relationships. I think this is, it could be a complement, it could be a support, it could be, a coach for the adults. Um, it is not a substitute. It should be used in enhancing human connections, not replacing.
Absolutely. So, Isabel, we are so grateful to you for this time together tonight. Parting words for the parents and educators on with us.
Yeah, parting words are, again, like just ensuring that we are focusing on these human traits of love and relationships first and foremost. This is what we need in this area